Hey, today we've planned a core and shoulder workout. Starting onto your back, bringing your hands in straps, come into a tabletop position. I've got a moderate spring on today and we're aiming for 3 sets of 8 for this first set of exercises. Bringing your arms down beside your body, drawing your belly button to your spine and keeping your tailbone tucked. So aiming that we're in a tabletop position and a lower core is helping us out here. Counting to 8 for each of these moves, and we're going to go and do them 3 times through. Our next one is a leg lower. Bent knees and oscillate your hips, so coming out and in, bringing your belly button to your spine using your lower core. Keep your hands up in the straps and draw your ribs together and see if you can really find your upper tummy muscles. To finish off this series, we're going to come into a tricep extension, so bend and straighten through your shoulders, through your elbows. You should feel this in the back of your shoulders. Again, making sure you've got your belly button to your spine and you're feeling your core muscles on. Aiming for a count of 8 here. After we've done that, we're going to go straight back to the start. Arms in straps, drawing down by your side. Here we've got 8. Now slowly dropping and bringing up your legs. If your lower back's sore, straighten out through your legs so your belly button is coming to your spine, but you're bending and straightening through your hips. It's the only joint that's moving and your lower tummy muscles are engaged. To finish off, we're coming back into those tricep extensions. Again, you can still do this with your legs straight extended or bringing them into a tabletop, whichever gets your tummy muscles working the most and something that you don't experience any back pain. Finishing off this series by coming back arms into straps again, and we're going to go for a count of 8. You've got 8, 7. Things will start to get sore. Keep your slow and controlled. 6, 5. Keep breathing. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Bringing your arms, holding them up into the straps, bending and straightening through that hip joint. Keeping your lower core engaged, keeping your tailbone tucked. Again, keep breathing and drawing your ribs together. To finish off, let's go through those tricep extensions. This is our last set of 8. From here, we've got 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice job, guys. Excellent. Hug your knees to your chest or rock and roll through your lower back, just stretching out through your lower back and your hips. We're now going to change the spring tension and work a little bit on our upper arms. So here I'm going a moderately middle spring, coming into a child's pose, stretching out through my upper back, pushing and pulling your knees in and out. You should feel a really intense stretch through your upper back. And if you're lucky, a little bit of tiny core activation. Our next one is pushing and pulling away from the reformer. Bend and straighten through your elbows. Really squeeze your shoulder blades together. See if you can get your middle back to do all the work here. And just watch where your neck is in space. So keeping your eye gaze down into the springs. Aiming for a count of 8. To finish off this small series, you're going to come into a knee tucked position, hands on the foot plate, and push and pull your knees in and out, aiming to punch up through your upper back so your core and upper ribs are engaged, and you should feel this in your tummy muscles. Coming back to the same exercises we did at the start, coming into that child's pose and pushing and pulling your knees in and out, getting that stretch through your upper back, but also seeing if you can get that lower core engaged. Pushing now through the foot bar and bending and straightening through your elbows, squeezing your upper back together and drawing through your tummy muscles. Keep breathing and you're counting to 8 here. You'll start to feel a little bit tight. That's why we continually change our exercises. Now, if you would like to make this harder, come into a hover position and push and pull your arms, straight arms, away from the foot bar. If this is too much, just bend your knees and you're aiming to get your upper abs engaged. If not, you can also just hold the hover position. Coming back to the child's pose, bending and straightening out through the knees, slowly oscillating through the lower back and getting the lower core to be engaged. You should start to feel a little bit of more movement in your upper back and it shouldn't feel as stiff. Pushing and pulling away for a count of 8, squeezing through your shoulder blades. Keep your eye gaze steady and chin tucked. You should feel this in your upper back, squeezing through your shoulder blades and the tops of your shoulders. Keep breathing. Our last one, coming into that hover position, arms on the foot plate, lifting up through the knees and pushing and pulling your body weight away, keeping your lower body super still. Again, you're going to feel pretty fatigued here. So if your back's sore, just bring your knees down and see if you can find it in your core and in your upper back and shoulders. Counting to 8. Excellent. Reaching back into the straps, we're now going to work an arms in straps in a seated position. Same spring. This is called serve the waiter. You're going to push, bend and straighten through your elbows, imagining you've got a ball or a plate on your hands and you're extending it out. Keep your shoulder blades back and belly button to spine, making sure you know where your lower tummy and core is and what they're doing in space. We're now pushing overhead. Be careful if you've got some shoulder issues. You can reduce the spring tension or come back to the exercises in our previous routine. You're counting for a rep range of 8 here. Pushing up and away. To finish off this series, we're coming into a tricep extension. Hands together, bend and straighten through your elbows and extend the straps over your head. You should feel this in your triceps and your shoulders. Go nice and slowly. Coming back to serve the waiter. If you would like to make it a bit harder, you can bend and extend through your knees, coming up and sitting onto the reformer. If not, stay bent down and bend and straighten through your arms. You should feel this in the front of your arms. Keep your belly button to your spine and your lower core engaged. Keep breathing. Counting for 8 now, pushing overhead. Squeeze through your shoulder blades. See if you can create as much space in your shoulders as possible. Watch where your eye gaze is and where your head is in space, keeping it soft in front of your face. We've got 8 tricep extensions now, bending and straightening through your elbows, hanging onto the straps together. Here you might notice that one side's a little bit stronger than the other. See if you can even it out through the straps. We're now going to come to your side, change the spring tension to one of the lowest springs. You're going to draw the sword, so picking out, bringing the strap down in front of the body, bending through your elbow and extending overhead. Bending in front and extending overhead. Now this is getting pretty ugly for me. See if you can keep nice and controlled and keeping your shoulder stable. Aiming for 8. Again, I think I had the spring a bit too high. Bending and straightening through the elbow. This is really good for the back part of the shoulder. See if you can keep the shoulder blade down and away from your ear. Bending or rotating through the elbow, keeping your elbow pinned to your side. You should feel this in the back part of your shoulder blade. Here we're counting for 8, coming back in to draw the sword for a count of 8. Now if it's too hard in high kneeling, you can come back into a seated position, or you can also place your box on top of the carriage, which might be a bit nicer for your knees. Aiming for 8 of those. Finishing off with 8 rotations through your shoulders. Belly button to spine, keep your lower core engaged, keep drawing your ribs together. See if you can just isolate that elbow joint. That's the only thing that's moving in space. Turning around onto the reformer, hanging onto the poles up the top, you're going to do a pull-up by bending and straightening through your elbows, squeezing through your shoulder blades for a count of 8. Here you should feel it in your upper back, similar to what we were doing before. Progress to one hand for a count of 8. This is great for your biceps and the front part of your shoulder blade. Keep squeezing through your shoulder, keeping your eye gaze steady. Swapping sides once you've got to 8. Bending and straightening through that elbow, squeezing down through the shoulder blade and keeping your lower core engaged, making sure that it's still active. Counting to 8, we're going to finish off with double arms, both sides, reaching forward through to the pulling with both arms, evening up through the shoulder blades. Keep breathing, keep your eye gaze steady. We've only got 2 more exercises types to go, or 2 more positions. Once you get to 8, coming over onto your side, and we're going to draw the sword on this side, bending and straightening through your elbow joint and extending up through your shoulder. Keep your shoulder blade high and create as much space in your shoulder as possible. If it's sore, go slower or reduce the range of movement. Bending and straightening or rotating your elbow or wrist around in space, keeping your elbow pinned to your side of your body. You want to make sure it's your shoulder doing the work and not your wrist. So keep your wrist strong as you hold the straps. Aiming for a count of 8 here, going back to 8, drawing the swords. Bending and straightening through your elbow, reaching up overhead, really pull and squeeze away from that shoulder. Here you've only got 2 more left. Push up and coming back to finish off with external rotation through your shoulder joint. Making sure it's your shoulder doing the work and not your wrist, keeping your elbow really steady by your side. Squeeze through your shoulder blade and keep your eye gaze straight. Well done. We're now coming into standing. Lower your foot bar so it's all the way flat and you can stand onto the foot plate. If you don't have a foot plate, you can stand onto the ground. Change this to your lowest spring. Now be careful because this is about balance. The first one that we're going to do is a 90-90 lunge. Bend and straighten through both legs at the same time, standing up tall and then bending deeply. Your goal is to keep the reformer still and steady the whole time, keeping your eye gaze steady. If you can, come back onto your back tiptoes so your calves also have to work hard. Our next one is a reverse scooter. We're aiming for 8 of these, bending and straightening the back leg all the way in and all the way back. You'll start to feel this in the standing leg. See if you can keep on your tiptoes and keep your balance as you bend and straighten through the standing leg. Swapping over sides now. Come back to the foot plate and then swap sides by standing onto the carriage, moving into 8 90-90 lunges on this side. Go slowly. You might notice that you've got a good or a bad side. As you bend down, if you do have knee pain, just push the carriage away from the foot bar a little bit more so you've got a little bit more space in the knee. Stay onto the tiptoes so you're active in the calves, aiming for a count of 8. And now we're going 8 reverse lunges. Really pull in and straighten the back leg as you move the carriage forward and back. Nothing else should move other than the back leg, staying in that tiptoe position. Counting for 8. Keeping steady, and then stepping off the reformer, we're going to reverse. So we're facing the other way, standing onto the reformer plate first, and then coming back. And we're finishing here with 2 lots of scooters. Bending deeply into one side, bend and straighten through that leg. Trying to keep as steady as possible while you're on the foot plate. If this is too much, you can do the same exercise, but bringing that front leg onto the front of the reformer. Once you've got to 8, swapping over sides, here we're going for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Nice job. To finish off, stepping off the reformer, coming into a bridge position, lift up through the foot bar and add a few more springs on. This exercise is great for your glutes and for your hamstrings. Bringing your heels onto the reformer, curl up and curl down through your hips, aiming to move 1 vertebrae at a time. Aiming for about 3 of these and then aiming for 8 pushes and pulls through your legs on the reformer. Extending out all the way. If you want more hamstring work, lower the spring tension. If you want more work in your quads in the front of your thighs, add a higher spring. Once you get to 8, we're now going to do 8 leg presses on one leg. I want your toes to be the contact point on the foot bar, keeping your, imagining you're wearing a high pair of heels and you're coming up onto your tiptoes. Aiming for 8 on each side. Bend and straighten through the leg. Seeing if you can keep your calf strong and pushing through your knee. Aiming for 8 of these. Once you get to 8, we're coming back into the bridge set. And we're doing 2 repetitions of these. Curling up and curling all the way down for a count of 3. Just seeing what back movement you've got or being curious. And bending and straightening in a hamstring curl. Really pushing and pulling through your heels so you're getting the carriage out as far as you can and getting it all the way into the stopper. Keep going until you get to 8. When you're done here, we're going to prance to finish off by pushing and pulling through your toes onto the reformer, seeing if you can get a nice calf stretch and also coming up onto your tiptoes on one side. Well done.